All right. So, to anybody that joined, welcome. This is the very first live horror rant discussion, and for this episode, we are going to be discussing A Nightmare on Elm Street. I have the original horror rant with me right now. So, go ahead, introduce yourself, and
Hi, I am Callum. I have a little Instagram page where I review all things horror. It's a little passion, a little pastime of mine. Currently, I'm in the middle of the A Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. Started back in 1984, spawned 9 films. We are on part 4 at the minute. Bit of a weird time to start a discussion video, but no time like the present. So yeah, let's crack on.
all right. So, to really begin this, although I don't believe it's going to be that many people, we have planned to display the trailer for anybody who hasn't seen the film or isn't familiar with Freddy Krueger or the Nightmare franchise.
Do you know what terror is?
Hello.
Do you live here?
Nobody lives here.
Real terror. How long has it been since you've been on Elm Street? Welcome to a brand new nightmare. He is the first in fear. Second to none.
Don't let them put you to sleep.
He has no mercy. And no equal.
Now no one sleeps.
Get ready. This August, your wildest dreams will come true.
How sweet, fresh meat.
A Nightmare on Elm Street, Part 4. The Dream Master.
Ready to shine from the inside?
That is the trailer for Nightmare on Elm Street 4. I apologize for the pixelation of it. Please understand that this movie came out in 1988, and that was well before YouTube. But anyway, let's kick off the discussion.
First of all, that trailer is quite misleading. It basically shows the opening with Kristen for the main portion of the trailer, with a few glimpses of here and there, which I think is a very smart and effective move to do. It doesn't show too much. It leaves you guessing of what's to come. It's quite interesting, really. It's quite a bold choice for them to do. Compared to the trailer we got for Nightmare 3, which was literally just the Nightmare Lullaby, you know, the one too, Freddy's coming for you, and a tricycle going round. That was actually quite nice. So it makes a nice change for it.
Which I don't disagree. So I am a huge fan of Nightmare 3. Nightmare 4, I have, I guess, kind of mixed feelings on. And I really think that's where we were introduced to the goofier Freddy Krueger. Where it still had like the menacing overtones, but it was yeah, I don't know. It's really difficult rating it next to Nightmare 3. I guess it's just really difficult to say that it stands tall.
Yeah, it had such a tough trajectory, really trying to follow on from how good Nightmare 3 is, because it's kind of an oddball, because obviously Nightmare 1 was this incredible debut with this incredible monster that Wes Craven really captured so perfectly, and then it changes it up for Nightmare 2, and then Nightmare 3 goes back to the main characters, the Nancy, with Donald, her father, returning. So that's like a little sequel if you ignore part 2, because that's got nothing to do mainly with the first one.
Part 2 is trash.
Oh no, part 2 is amazing. And then you get this. I've never fully been a fan of this film. I just don't, like you said, it's so hard to follow up Nightmare 3, which I don't think, no matter what we did, we could have did it. I think it had so much going against it. Like, obviously, the actress who plays Kristen, she changed. It was Patricia Arquette, and now it is Tuesday Night. So that's kind of like it can throw the audience off course, and especially how Nightmare 3 ended with Nancy dying. It was such a risk we took, and then you need to see how it pays, if it'll pay off for, well, obviously Nightmare 4, the Dream Master, and I don't think it does at all.
Which I am, I'm going to be quite honest. So, looking at Joey's dream, right? So how he died, I almost feel like that was a slap in the face instead of more of a callback to the very first one with Glenn.
Yeah. It was different in an extent. Obviously, you got Freddy cracking the "How's this for a wet dream," which
that was I did like that part. That was funny.
That's like one of the best parts of this film. And then obviously you got Kincaid as well. But how Freddy gets resurrected by his dog Jason pissing on his grave. Fucking hell. What the fuck was that?
Which I guess, I mean, I guess that's a way to say, like, I guess it, pissed him off in a sense, sure, but yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of curious though. I have pulled up here the reviews for Nightmare 4. So it has a 52% on Rotten Tomatoes, which
that's too generous.
Right. Well, that, and I don't know who runs Rotten Tomatoes, because I don't think they run it very well. I mean, especially over here with Google users, 90% like the movie. So it's kind of things like that. But looks like there's 46 audience reviews. Obviously, we won't go over all of them. But this first one, just awesome. I rank this one almost as good as Part 3, but for different reasons. Picks up after the events of the previous film, which most franchises do, and keeps you engaged. Fun character dynamic with an intriguing new group of dream victims. Which, okay, maybe.
Well, the characters in this film are pretty much one-dimensional. They've all got one character trope,
right?
Maybe two about them, and what little screen time they have, that's all you are told about them. So, for example, Debbie, in all of her scenes, she's either working out or saying how she hates bugs. Like, okay. Sheila, she's got asthma and she's smart. Okay. And, oh God, don't even get me started on what's his name. Rick. He doesn't match up that. For fuck's sake, man.
Yeah, I almost felt like this film overall was just an entire slap in the face to the Nightmare community. That, and it really like almost forced a magical undertone, or not even so much of an undertone. I guess it would be a straightaway overtone, because everybody absorbed into
Alice. That was so awful how we did it.
Yeah, it's like I thought it was was a cool idea, but to actually see it on screen and to how it's presented, it's weird.
Yeah, like
You know,
if he did it more subtly over the course of the entire film, it would have had a bigger impact and it wouldn't have made it look as goofy. But the fact it was right in your face almost immediately, it was like, oh god.
but the other part of it, and I still think this is I don't know, just lazy writing or if it's just pandering. It makes sense if it was in the nightmare realm, because that violates all rules of reality. But to actually bring that idea into a real world setting is just it's ridiculous.
It's going against like what Wes Craven originally like had. Like
Exactly.
it's going against Dream Warriors as well, because the powers that those kids got in part 3, they only carried on in the dreams once they woke up. They weren't like that. Taryn wasn't this badass chick with switchblades, and you tell me Kirsten could do a fucking backflip in the real life? No. It was just so goofy.
What was the disabled kid? I can't remember his name.
Oh, he could walk.
Yeah,
which fair enough.
And he was what
a wizard master.
Yeah. Which was, I mean, again, but it made sense because it was in that dream world. Whether or not they could get there purposefully or not, it was just, it made sense in that aspect. But then when you start to go into, now we're absorbing people, it's just, it's silly. I think it goes kind of into the, like, my audience is stupid.
Yeah, it's
so
it's like one of those films that, you know, the director Rennie Harlin, I think he did a decent job with obviously what he was given.
Right.
It had, I think it was a $6 million budget, $6 million US dollar budget, and it was actually the highest grossing film in the franchise until Freddy vs. Jason, and that puzzles me because it's definitely one of the weakest.
So, let's see. The budget was, I don't understand this. There's 3 different numbers for budget.
It might have been due to inflation, with obviously money getting better value, worse value.
I could see that. So we'll just go with the base rate. So 6.5 million.
Yeah.
Was the budget. It doesn't surprise me that it made 49.4 million, especially being the successor to Nightmare 3. I'm sure everybody was excited and just happened to go. But so this review in itself, a little bit lengthier, but it's the start of the negative reviews. So I've never watched a Nightmare on Elm Street film other than Freddy vs. Jason prior to 2021, which I've actually heard a lot of people say that, which is funny.
Quite confusing.
But, I mean, it kind of also makes sense because if you're a big Friday the 13th fan...
Oh, yeah.
That's your exposure to the Nightmare realm rather than people that have grown up with it. But I recently bought a box set, and working my way through them, I really liked Elm Street 3 Dream Warriors and Elm Street 4 Dream Master as a direct sequel to the plot, in that one with some original cast returning. Sadly, there is no signs of Patricia Arquette, who was recast. The film feels a bit samey. Who the fuck wrote this? Classic boxing match is good for them. The film feels a bit samey with Dream Warriors to me, but now it's one teen Alice facing Freddy instead of 3 or 4, which, okay, I understand that if you're coming directly from Nightmare 3, but that is a big plot component to the entire franchise.
Yeah, because within the first 30 minutes, they kill off the 3 survivors from the previous film, which is like it's a risk. Like, it didn't pay off because obviously you go into this film expecting to see Kristen, Kincaid, and Joey, after what we went through in part 3, and especially how strong they were as a trio, you'd expect them to obviously make it at least a bit further in the film, and then just have them killed off within the first 30 minutes. You're like, no, you just don't do that. And then to pass on to Alice, who, I love Lisa Wilcox. I do prefer her performance in part 5 over part 4.
Yes.
But she's not strong enough as a character in the beginning of this film to see us through to the end. She's not a final girl you can fully root for, because she's a lesser Kristen, if you get me. Like,
oh yeah, absolutely.
She's got all the components for just really hidden away, and it takes a while. Like, her acting is shaky from here and there, and some of the line deliveries, like do you know when she's daydreaming about Rick and stuff, and she's like, "You big hunk," and she's like got all this confidence. I was like, girl, no.
Right. It again, it kind of goes back to the pandering, though, because that was, I guess that was kind of the ideology of females, and especially younger ones at that. But, and I say this so kindly, within, what was it, like the first 5 to 10 minutes, Alice's home life was introduced, and she was berated. And it's like, okay, so she daydreams of a better life, telling off her dad, and I'm fine with that. I think that's, I think that's admirable.
Yeah.
It's something that a lot of people do. But it almost paints her into a pussified light of, she's a coward. Not taken away from any true, real, domestic abuse victims, but just seeing it on screen with her, and that she won't say anything to her dad, and now all of a sudden she's essentially inhaling all of her friends and then going after Freddy Krueger, right? It's just kind of, it's weird. it's so lazy. But I don't disagree. I think Nightmare 5, she does phenomenal, and that plot makes so much more sense, because again, even with the kid, the dream child, it's in the nightmare realm again. So, and that kind of also goes back to, I feel like a smack in the face, but anyway, so going back to the, the final girls, final guys, and that, unless I'm incorrect, and I just cast away, Nightmare 2. I think Nightmare 2 is a phenomenal film, in a sense, but it's trash to the franchise. But you look at Nightmare 1, the final girl, the only person to actually fight Freddy is Nancy.
Icon.
Oh, absolutely. Nightmare 3 is a little bit different. Obviously, you have the multiple ones.
Yeah.
4 is one.
5 is one.
I guess you can make the argument for 2, but technically 1. Freddy's dead. Yeah, there are multiple people once they bring Freddy over to the real world, but again, it's the main character, the final girl, that's fighting him.
She does a final blow. And then New Nightmare, you've got
Heather Langenkamp.
Yeah, and Dylan, which I think they're my favourite duo in the entire franchise.
I'm gonna be honest. So, I can't remember his actual name, the kid, or Dylan's actual name. And as a father, I can happily say this, that if my kid ever started acting like that, I would punt that motherfucker across the room. So, like, props to Heather for not kicking her son.
Oh yeah, she endured so much shit. But it's like going back to Nightmare 3 again. It's the film you have to compare it to, because it's the predecessor,
right?
And it had big shoes to fill. But when they made that decision to kill Nancy in part 3, it's like it started a trend with the Nightmare franchise. You've got to kill your lead from this film in the next film, and I think that's what we did with Kristen.
It's just kind of the domino effect rolling down.
Yeah, and they do it again in Nightmare 5 with Dan, who he's my favourite character in Nightmare 4. I love me some Dan. I think he's such a nice. What we see of him, he's a nice, genuine bloke who's obviously not been written the best, but whatever he has on screen, he's just so charismatic that you can't help but root for this guy. So it's kind of upsetting when you obviously see what happens to him in part 5, but it's not got a strong enough cast of characters to help propel this movie. It's like part 1 had these 4 teenagers. You had Tina, Rod, Glenn, and Nancy, who obviously were just so captivating to watch. You actually cared about these characters, and you felt shit when they got offed.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Even
part 2 had Jesse and stuff.
Even with fucking with Ron, he and he was a dick. I hated him from the get go.
Oh yeah,
even like the backyard scene, right? So out of nowhere, like
he's just automatically
and he pulls a knife out. And it's like, okay, well that's a bit of an over exaggeration, but sure, like that's some like greaser type shit right there. But yeah, even when he got off, that was upsetting because the character development was phenomenal.
Oh yeah.
That and with the exception of New Nightmare, which I feel about, I feel like that Freddy was more menacing and to be feared rather than any other. And Nightmare 2 tried that fear component, but bringing him into the real world and making him this other kind of entity fucked up.
Yeah. See, that's why Nightmare 2. That's one of my main issues with it. Is Freddy is the dream person. What Nancy did was smart in the first one, how she brought him in. But Nightmare 2, obviously when Freddy came into the real world, you didn't know if he was like, how did he get? Because he just fucking jumps up from the pool, from a little grid on the floor, and like, okay. And then Nightmare 3, obviously, he doesn't come into the real world. And then Nightmare 4, it starts continuing that trend of just sticking to the dreams. And I do appreciate it for that. I think that's what... It's a linear story, which I do appreciate, even if it's not executed to its best.
Yeah, absolutely. I think with Nightmare 2, they missed an opportunity at the end of Nightmare 1 when Nancy's mom got pulled through the door. That could have been their scapegoat of an explanation as to why this was happening. But then, yeah, it was just silly. And I think that's kind of why I dislike the 4th film even more, is because they tried this stupid shit into the real world. It didn't work. So they went to 3, which was phenomenal, and then we're going to try more stupid shit on 4. And what's even more dumbfounding to me is that somebody actually sat there and said, "This is a hell of an idea. This is a banger."
But one aspect I do actually really enjoy about this film is, I think we discussed it like a little tiny bit before about Alice's daydreaming. I like that little incorporation of she's just fallen into a dream at any given time and stuff. Like, I think the best scene in this film is the loop sequence when obviously Alice and Dan are trying to get to Debbie, and then Debbie's working out and she's fallen asleep. But I don't get how you can fall asleep while working out. So that kind of unravel some questions.
That's a hell of a workout, is what that is.
Yeah. And then Alice and Dan keep going in a loop and a loop and a loop when they're trying to get to the truck and then drive off, and then obviously it just keeps repeating itself. I think that is just such a nice change to see. It's not been explored in the previous 3 entries, and I think that was a smart decision. obviously a smart decision to do, because it helped make it a slight bit different from any other films.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Which I do think is really cool going on to that is they tried to re-explore that in Freddy's Dead with when they were trying to leave the town. It became a continuous loop.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of made it more menacing, because who hasn't had anxiety when driving, and especially to a new place, wondering if you're going the right fucking way. Right. So that, if anything, that kind of just said, like, hey, look at this. We're gonna fuck with your anxiousness. Like,
you're screwed. And it's this movie. It's just too goofy. I do
absolutely.
appreciate that they try to make Freddy more comical in part 3, which it's so perfect how they did it, how they incorporated it in that one. In here, I feel like they're trying too hard. Not all of his one-liners work. Some of them do, like what he says to Sheila, "Wanna suck face." That cracks me up. When he's in the diner with Alice and stuff, and she's seeing this older version of herself, and then Freddy just appears with this pizza, and he's got all the dead friends' faces on, and it's like eating it like it's a meatball. It's like soul food.
It's just, I like the goofiness from that comedic standpoint, but yeah, it took away from the menacing Freddy that...
You've got to know the right moments to incorporate it. You can't overdo it. I mean, the Freddy we got from that, it propelled him into pop culture, into mainstream. It was like so popular right now. Well, back in obviously 1988 when the movie came out, and he became this recognizable figure. And now, just from his costume and his fedora and his glove, and now he was having one-liners which were quotable. It's like you've never had a horror villain like that. So
right.
It was bold what we did, and it was different for the time and stuff.
Well, so that's the other thing, is if you're really looking at that era, the leaders, not including Nightmare, but the leaders of the horror genre at that point were really Michael Myers and Freddy Krueger. Now you had Chucky, but Chucky was kind of his own thing. It wasn't a guy. It was a doll.
Yeah.
So I understand, and I do still think it's noble that they tried. Brad Dourif himself is known to be
such a phenomenal voice actor.
Oh my god, I love it. I think it's ridiculous they started a TV series when he's in his 70s. I'm going to be upset when he passes.
Oh no, don't, because I've been thinking about that lately. I looked him up the other day because I knew it was his birthday. Well,
yeah,
I didn't, and I was like, how old?
Yeah, because he's like 71 now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something like that, and there will never be another voice for Chucky. Like, I appreciate what Mark Hamill did in the remake in 2019.
Oh my gosh, yes.
That was a different take. It was fresh. It was nice, but
it made us feel bad for Chucky.
My god,
that was the whole purpose.
I cried for that little ginger bastard.
Oh my gosh, but yeah, it's so again, I think it's phenomenally noble what they tried to do, but it just didn't work. It didn't work because we were already associated with a maniacal, a sinister entity, and then you make him funny.
Yeah, and in the same year, in 1988, you had some notable franchise releases. You had Killer Clowns from Outer Space. You had the first Child's Play, Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers, Hellbound, Hellraiser 2, and you had Friday the 13th Part 7, A New Blood? Yeah, A New Blood. And I think out of those films I've listed, I don't think it even cracks the top half of those, because compare that to the other films what I've just mentioned, and it's nowhere near as good. I mean, Halloween 4, as shit as it is, it's so much more easier to watch and it's more enjoyable. It's basically a near carbon copy of the original in some aspects.
Oh yeah, it's just with Jamie in that.
Yeah, with blander characters, but Rachel, the final girl for that film, she's much more captivating to watch. She's she's more of a delight on screen, and I think the actress is Ellie Cornish or something like that. I can't remember off the top of my head, but oh my god, she was just an absolute brilliant final girl.
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely. The one thing that I'll definitely, without a doubt, regardless of the film of this franchise, is that Nightmare stayed on a timeline.
Yeah.
There was no Halloween thing, and I love Halloween to death, but especially with Halloween 2018, I felt so insulted that that's how we're going to play it. And then even the last year's Halloween Kills, I know that they wanted it to be action packed, and it's fine, but I feel like with Donald, because he had passed away, to use somebody that looks exactly like him, which I thought was cool nonetheless.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But you're using him in 3 different timelines, and he's not even alive anymore. So I almost feel like it's additionally insulting to him because you're using it for gain. But so I mean that is one, and I think even though each Friday the 13th Jason came out looking different,
Freddy stayed consistent.
Exactly.
Apart from Nightmare 1, where the stripes weren't on the sleeves of the jumper, but we can forget that.
Oh yeah, like that. So that's one easy thing, is that's kind of,
yeah.
All that is just a change in outlook. We're not hopping to a different thing. Chucky, I love Chucky to death, but then I mean, what was it after Chucky?
Pride.
Bride of Chucky, they
stitch work, yeah.
Which I think he looks menacing, which is phenomenal. But I mean, number one, having like a 4-foot high doll coming after you trying to kill you is menacing to begin with.
Scary enough, yeah.
Exactly, but it really, again, the same thing with this one. It really pushed that happy-go-lucky, ha-ha. Now. The nail scene of that movie was phenomenal. I love that. That was the first time he had deviated to something that sickening.
It's got some nice callbacks in that film. It really has.
Absolutely.
I just wish this film, Nightmare 4, had callbacks to, the previous ones.
Which,
because as you said, it's a very linear timeline and stuff, which it stays in throughout the entire 6, 7, 8 movies, which for a film genre like that, it's quite impressive, especially when most of the sequels are terrible but continue going. It's really quite an accomplishment, really. But
oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, it kind of does give a tiny bit of a callback to number 3, but I mean, to
not
what extent?
Fine enough. Yeah.
It mentions it, and that's fine. Within the first couple of minutes, that Freddy's back and that feeling, and then we just kill off everybody that's really associated with 3, and it's like, no, like that's stupid.
Like I understand why Freddy killed the main 3 from the previous film, because obviously he wants to get rid of the Elm Street kids, and the way they incorporated Alice and stuff, so he has a fresh batch of victims, so he can continue going on this little killing spree. I think that was a smart move. It was just executed badly.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh my God. Like, when Kristen is getting thrown into the boiler, as she says to Alice, "I give you my powers."
Right, it's
No.
like, oh, that's some like Power Rangers type shit, right? Like, are we watching a horror movie, or is this like Saturday morning cartoons? You know? Oh my gosh.
It just looks so corny and
It does. Oh, absolutely.
It-
There's not much of a way to go around that they tried so hard, and
and
they did not get so far.
and then the way they defeat Freddy in the end, well, Alice does. She's got all these gadgets. She's got Rick's nunchucks. She's got Sheila's bug zapper. She's got Debbie's temper, so her anger really, and then Kristen's backflips. Does she get Joey's voice speech? I don't see her screaming. Does she get Kincaid's super strength? I don't see her bending chairs.
Oh, absolutely not.
And then she remembers that rhyme, the Dream Master rhyme, which, don't get me started on that because that's just fucking stupid itself. I pray the Lord the Dream Master in my soul to keep, or something like that. You just remember it right when you need to. Coincidence.
Right. It's like I said, it really starts to push back to being insulting.
Yeah, because it completely contradicts what number 3 did. Because if you think about it, the way she defeats Freddy is she shows him a mirror, so he sees a reflection of himself.
Mm-hmm.
Like, no, you in part 3, in the Hall of Mirrors scenes, I'm pretty sure Freddy would have been looking at himself, even if it is in the dream world, but it's still a mirror that can view himself. So it completely outdoes what number 3 set up.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
And then you have the gimmicky souls coming out with his body and stuff. It just looks so cheap and nasty. Like, I get it. It's a slasher in the 80s. It's gonna look like that. But stuff like in they did have some really good practical effects in this film, like with obviously Debbie and the cockroach transformation. I thought that was beautifully well executed. I mean, you have like Sheila, she's deflating from the asthma attack. I thought that was, it was good. It wasn't to the highest standard, but it was still looked believable. I mean, you got these fucking dripping meatballs coming out of Freddy's body, pulling him. Oh no. You just can't have that. After all the brilliant effects we've shown throughout this movie, you're going to have that as the defeat of Freddy. No, you just can't. I would have preferred it if you spent a bit more budget on that instead of wasting it with shots of a diner or, endless scenes of Debbie working out and squashing bugs.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, that becomes, again, the big thing is that they just, they tried so fucking hard to either, I guess, reinvent it or just make everybody look stupid.
Yeah, and the characters are so shallow. I know I keep going on about the characters, but
Yeah, I mean, I really think that between the plot and the characters themselves, I think that really just kind of destroys the movie.
Because there's absolutely no depth to them. Like, if you look back to Nightmare 3, when each of the kids was dying, all the characters had a wide range of emotions.
Mm-hmm.
Like, when Philip got puppeteered off the balcony, you could see the emotion, you could feel the emotion from all the kids in the psychiatric hospital. You could feel the pain and stuff. And if a character dies in this one, no,
like, who gives a shit?
Yeah.
Like, and I guess that really pushes the character development is in 3, even like 1 was again decent. 5, I can't really say much because we're dealing with the same person that we were already introduced to.
Yeah.
But 3, you started with, there was a suicide attempt, even though it was not obviously a suicide attempt, and then it escalated into this mental hospital where we're meeting and we're understanding these people, and then they start getting cut off. And in 4, it's, hey, do you remember these 3 people? And then fuck you.
Bye.
Right, like, and then it's this whole like wild ass string of events, and it's just, it's weird. But game has to recognize game. They tried, and although it wasn't a complete success, they still tried. They did a fairly decent job from that standpoint.
I think it just comes down to the fact that it's had 2 very strong predecessors before it. Obviously, Nightmare 1 and Nightmare 3, which are quite difficult to, step up above. We had some big shoes to fill, and just didn't have big enough feet.
Yeah, absolutely, I agree. Oof. So what is the plan? So the next rant is going to be Nightmare 5, correct?
Yeah, Nightmare 5. We can discuss that shit show.
Which, to anybody that is not aware of what Nightmare 5 is, the Dream Child, it is the unholy love child of Nightmare 4 with the sense of Freddy Krueger. So
Nightmare 5 is... It's... Oh god, how can I say this politely? It's a fucking mess. Nightmare 5 was, when I was younger, the one I was most excited to watch. After reading all the descriptions, after checking everything out, it's the one I googled the most, trying to get some images of it. I was so excited. I thought, you know what? A little baby Freddy running around, that could be so interesting. Bear in mind, I was like 10 years old at the time. And then when I finally saw it, oh god, I was disappointed.
Yeah. It's kind of funny. I remember going to Blockbuster here and renting the VHS copy of it. And it was one of those things that those like thoughts or feelings you have when you're a kid that you kind of remember that it happened, but you can't. And then when FearNet had come out, which was a phenomenal channel. I don't know if Europe had FearNet or anything like that.
I can't remember anything like that.
So
I don't think we did.
So what FearNet was is it started essentially kind of like a streaming service. So Comcast Cable over here had an on-demand section. So let me see. All right, so this is a little bit of a throwback for me as well. So right here was the old Comcast on demand. You would hit a little button, it would pop up to this, right? So you would go here. I don't remember if it was just under movies or something like that. But you would end up going there, and there was this phenomenal service, FearNet. So FearNet ended up, I think it was monthly or something like that. They would have like so many horror movies, whether it was like kind of indie horror or whether we're talking like complete classical throwback. The Mangler is a phenomenal film. And the only way I know of this fucking film is literally because of FearNet. So, but anyway, so I remember I was home, or I was at my great aunt's. I was sick from school, and I got on FearNet, and I remember seeing that it would popped up, and it was weird because it was only that one. They didn't have any other nightmares on for that month. It was just Nightmare 5. And I watched, and it was exciting, you know, just because it was that like nostalgic, like, hey, I remember you kind of feeling.
Yeah. It's just one of those little throwbacks for yourself. Kind of like gets you excited.
Absolutely it is.
It's good when a film manages to do that. It manages to get you excited. Like, oh, I've not checked this out in a while. I'll have a watch of it. I was like that with I don't know if you've seen it, Cherry Falls. I've not seen that film in so long. Every time I get a chance to watch it, because
you said Chevy Falls?
Cherry
Falls.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Oh, it's an amazing dark comedy slasher with Brittany Murphy. God rest her soul. It's about this person who goes around killing virgins and stuff in this town called Cherry Falls, and it is so unique and so twisted in its own sense. It was just one of those films that really, like, you know, popped, if you pardon the pun.
Yeah. So indie movies. I have a respect for indie movies. I have a respect for colleges, filmmaking colleges. People have to start somewhere. I love that. But it was actually on Woodsboro Horror Film Club that I'd seen this fucking movie pop up. And I was actually at work. It was in between 911 calls, and my boss and I were partners that night. And we watched this, and this was the best example of a fucking horrid film. Bleed. So let me pull up this picture here. This Bleed was from 2002. And it was cool. It had, I mean, even just the cover says that it could be something phenomenal. It kind of had an extremely loose-fitting feeling of Scream. Like, it tried to push that slasher genre. But where it failed was that it was so... It was a college film. It was a terrible fucking college film. And I think it's still free on either Amazon. No, it was Tubi. It was free on, and I think it was for like $5 on Amazon. Which, fuck that. I am 100% not paying for a movie that makes me want to hate my life. So.
Oh god, I think I paid for a film to watch the other night because it was just, you know, one of those you've not seen in so long. You want to obviously see it.
Yeah.
I can't remember what it was now, but it was god awful. Oh, it's escaped my head of what it was, but it was. And you think you're back to it, and you're like, oh, this is fun, and then you start to realise, oh, this isn't fun.
It's that almost nostalgic feeling that makes you think it was better than what it was.
Yeah, like I get that so much with Jaws 3. Jaws 3D. When I was a kid, I loved that movie so much. I thought it was so cool with that big shark. And then thinking back now to it, I was like, oh my god, what a train wreck.
So going back, I mentioned it earlier, the Mangler. Have you seen the second one with the college?
I don't think I have, no.
So it kinda it's one of those, it's cringy, but it's interesting, and it takes an entirely new turn. It's essentially the protagonist downloads what she thinks is like a Trojan virus to her computer, tries to upload it to her college's server. What it is it's this malevolent fucking system, the Mangler, that pretty much transformed. And I loved it when I was a kid. And like it was phenomenal. I thought it was cool as shit. Looking back on it, it sucked as a movie. like really it did. But it's one of those things, like I can't find it anywhere, and I would almost venture to guess it's because it sucked as a movie. Because you can find the Mangler, you can find the third one, which what was that one? The Mangler 3, and it was named something. I don't remember what it was called. The Mangler Reborn, which took a weird, sickening turn on it. But yeah, this one, it's almost like
it's just been deleted from the face of the earth.
Pretty much. And for instance, one of the production companies for the second one was Banana Brothers Entertainment. Right. Like, the only way, and now this was all a FearNet thing too, so they had all three of the Manglers on FearNet, and I think it was like the first one's anniversary or something like that is what prompted it. But I remember the 1995 release of the Mangler was so exciting to me because it had Robert Englund in it, and obviously can't really talk about Nightmare without saying, like, hey, he was in these things.
Oh god, he's such a fantastic actor. What he brings to any role he's in, especially
Absolutely.
Freddy, but in the other roles he plays, in Urban Legend, in is it 2001 Maniacs? I'm not too sure.
Yes.
And then he's just golden with anything he touches.
I feel like they were probably trying to do what Scream did when they killed off Drew Barrymore first. However, it didn't work. What, for which film? Was that... Is that going to be for Nightmare or one of the other films that we were talking about? Sorry, we'd gotten a message.
Ooh.
And for whatever reason, it didn't pop up. So I just seen it. Let me see. I'm going to put up like a separate chat box. That way I can see it pop up. In Nightmare 4.
Kristen, yeah, I can see that. Even though Scream obviously came out,
Yeah.
what is it, 8 years later? You can still...
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, that's yeah, no, that's a good point. Is there is a correlation there, absolutely. Nightmare 4 came out a little earlier. But no, absolutely. I think it's just lazy writing. And with both being a Wes Craven franchise, it almost makes sense that you would see bits and pieces of the franchise in it. Now,
even if Craven wasn't involved in this film and stuff.
Yeah, right, absolutely.
You can definitely see the impact from being involved in Nightmare 3, even the original, how that affected it and how it implemented New Nightmare. I mean, that itself helped build Scream. so you can really see the links and stuff through the work and everything in the entire Nightmare franchise that has been built that helps lead up to New Nightmare, so which then obviously leads into Scream. So it's all all the mappings there. It's just not necessarily in your face.
Right. It's a little bit calmer. It's nice about it, which I guess it really just depends on the situation surrounding it. But I really, as far as Scream goes, I really appreciated their hat tip to John Carpenter with Halloween. It was kind of cool though in Scream 5 to see it come full circle, but I mean we're talking about a legitimate requel, so as far as Nightmare 4 is concerned, and I want to say it's one of the worst. Like I said, I think Nightmare 2 is significantly worse.
Oh yeah.
But they tried the same stupid in real time, in your face thing again, and it was Wes Craven's New Nightmare. I liked the idea of it because it changed that in your face real time thing. And it became nothing more than a fear manifestation, which was cool.
Yeah.
It really was. But you enter into almost like a what's the word I'm looking for? Like a ridiculous rebounding circle that you're not getting away from, because we already seen in Nightmare 4 it doesn't work. Nightmare 5 kind of goes away from that, which is great because they figured out it didn't work. Freddy's Dead essentially went back to the original. They pulled him out of the dream, which was good.
But oh my god.
But then New Nightmare comes out, and the only way I think they kind of make it work is you have Wes Craven in it that's actually playing in it. You have Robert Englund playing as himself.
You have Bob Shea, who's playing himself as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It Heather Langenkamp. I mean, obviously you can't forget her, but it's yeah, it's crazy that they retried it. They tried it from a different angle, which I think is what made it work, because they went to the roots of Freddy to make him an angry, menacing villain.
It's like we stepped out and saw a different version of what the films could have been.
Yes.
If you think about it, it's kind of like an anthology. If you take out New Nightmare and stand it as its own film against them, it is sort of like an anthology. It's taking the same idea, but it's doing something completely different and flipping it on its head, which...
Now, that idea would be superb if nobody associated with the franchise was in it, especially Robert Englund. However, as horrid as these movies could be, they do not touch the remake, and how shitty that remake was. In the Woodsboro Horror Film Club, actually, I'd gotten into a disagreement, and I never even looked to see if they responded to my response, truly. But somebody had mentioned, it might have been you, I don't know, it was something about the remake compared to the old one, and I had commented and said that no, I disagree, that the new one's good, because it's not. It's rushed, number one, and then it deviates from the original storyline, and it's not a child murderer anymore, it's a child rapist.
Yeah.
And that's horrible, and somebody had commented that was supposed to be Craven's initial plan, was it was going to be a rapist, and that's fine. And it might have been. I haven't researched that, so I can't really say yay or nay to that.
It is full on concrete that it was Craven's original plan. I just don't think it would have, given the era, been fully... the film would have been looked so highly upon if that was Freddy's background. I don't think it would have been propelled into the success or started a franchise if the audience knew what Freddy originated from. But it
was the production studio that said no to that, right?
I do believe so, but I also believe that Craven himself wanted to keep it out, to keep more of a mystery to Freddy. I mean, I'm speaking of a man who's not here anymore, but
right,
that's just how I personally thought Craven was, thinking when he made this character, made this film. But yeah, that's one thing I do appreciate for the remake. It did elaborate something from the original and gave it a bit more depth. Granted, it wasn't very well executed. It fit the plot. It fit the story perfectly. Like, it helped carry it along. It gave motive for Freddy. It also added a little mystery of maybe Freddy was innocent all along and these kids were just making up.
And then it's just anger.
It
manifested itself.
It added a whole new question, and it elevated it into not greatness, but something different. Even though the remake isn't a fantastic film, it has that about it for standing out. But then it kind of brings back to all these sequels like 4, 5, and 6 and stuff, when we get to know more of Freddy's background and stuff, and it kind of touches upon it, but not heavily, or it's not fully implied. You just have to kind of pick the pieces up and put them together in your own subconscious, really.
Yeah.
I think the earliest I started to recognise it was actually in Freddy vs. Jason. Not Freddy vs. Freddy's Dead. Do you know when it's the flashbacks, the newspaper clippings, and his daughter, I forget her name because she's so forgettable, she's having these nightmares of her past, and obviously they're not telling us that it's Freddy who's her dad, but obviously you can kind of pretty much guess it. If you think back to it, you can clearly see that there was something more to Freddy there, hidden beyond the surface, with the way he was describing his daughter, which is so fucked up and creepy and so absurd.
So I want to go back to I felt like I was getting slapped in the face, and it's because I mean Freddy versus Jason actually is an even better point to this. Is you have in minus the realization that Freddy Krueger is a fucking murderer. It paints this picture of a White House picket fence, a happy family, and then it goes astray when the truth is found out. But then Freddy versus Jason kind of bends it back, and he's in a warehouse. Here comes the furnace again, and it's weird. It's one of those things I'm grateful it followed its timeline, which is phenomenal, and Freddy's Dead was cool. The video game part was actually one of my favorite fucking parts, and I don't know why. I think because it was in a movie that kept bending the rules of reality, it bent them even further, because at that point now video games are becoming a big thing, and I think around that time was
the Nintendo. It was the little arm device. Was it for the Nintendo 64 or something?
the Power Glove. The Power Glove. That's what it was. And it worked. It and I know even with that, the Nintendo 64 had 007 and a bunch of other games, and I know parents were throwing a fit because now, I mean, nowadays you see more horrific games. I mean, when I was younger, Manhunt 2 was a horrible thing because you had the option to slit somebody's throat, right? So I think Manhunt 2 was outlawed in Europe. I really do think so. I'd have to look that up. But, obviously Americans don't give a shit because we're all fat and depressed. But,
You said it, not me.
but yeah, but I know parents had like this really big thing that, their kid was playing 007 with its pixelated graphics and everything. And they're going to be murderers because it depicts killing. And then here comes Freddy Krueger just killing people in a game.
And you're like, wow.
Yeah,
great
it's
graphics.
right. And it's like, oh my god, man, it's awesome. Now I want to look it up. I swear to God, I think Manhunt 2 was outlawed in England. The first Manhunt game you can actually get on PlayStation, at least in North America. And I don't really it's kind of gruesome for the time period, but it's not terrible. It's kind of weird if you really think about it. But so the release date for Manhunt 2 is 2007. Let's see. At a press conference in San Francisco, California, Tuesday, James Steyer, CEO of the children's advocacy group Common Sense Media, called Manhunt 2 one of the most horrifically violent games that we've ever seen. It features a variety of different executions and is really a very, very violent, almost unwatchable game. I've never actually played Manhunt 2. I don't remember, let's see, if it was 2007, I would have been 11. Actually, it came out 2 days before my birthday, so I would have been almost 11. I tried to get my great aunt to buy it for me, and just the same thing as any other kid, right? Like, hey, I really want this game. But then you have that fucking GameStop employee that's like, well, it's rated M for mature, and this is why. And it just fucked it all up. So I've actually never played this one. I played the original one, but I remember there was so much controversy that came from it.
Video games are rotting my minds.
Yeah, right. Like, and I honestly believe that if somebody is that affected by media, whether it's video games or movies, their mind is already destroyed, and they're experiencing some form of psychosis that it didn't matter what it was going to be, that was going to trip them. So, let's see. Manhunt was subject to significant video game controversy due to the level of graphic violence depicted, and this is just the original one. This isn't the second one. Banned in several countries and was implicated in a murder by the UK media, although this accusation was later rejected by the police and the courts. Manhunt 2 has been condemned by authorities for its casual sadism, and unremitting bleakness. The British Board of Film Classification rejected the video game after finding it constantly encourages visceral killing.
Well, I'm sure I had a bit more gore than what we watched with fucking Nightmare 4.
From what I understand, even just the YouTube videos I've seen, it's fucking horrible. like I wouldn't say it's on like a Saw torture porn level, but it's definitely fucking up there. Like, holy shit.
Holy cow. So, in conclusion, out of a bucket rating of 10, how would you rate Nightmare 4?
It depends on, are we talking a generalized 1 through 10, or are we talking based on the actual series? Where am I rating it?
So, on HorrorRant, we have 6 categories in which we rank the overall quality of a film. This is obviously, it can either be a critical evaluation or it can either be a personal evaluation. It tends to be a bit of both for me. So we have acting, the plot, the characters, the cinematography, the gore, and the deaths. So each one is marked out of 10, and then you add all 6 scores together, divide it by 60, and it'll give you a final number, which you can times it by 10, and that'll give you your percentage, your rating. So for me, I give him the acting a 4.
That is generous.
Right. If it wasn't for the I give you my powers, you're a bastard, or that stupid physical comedy sequence with Rick and the martial arts Freddy Glove, I'd give it higher. The only people that salvage it for me are Dan, Debbie, and Sheila. Oh, and Robert Englund, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. So, going off of a 1 through 10 idea, and I'm almost willing to break this down by my thoughts. I would have to say 1 through 10, where I have to go with a 4. And I almost feel like I'm being too generous, and it's because it deviates so much from the seriousness of the franchise. The acting was kind of okay, like you said, the cringe-worthy moments are what kind of killed it, which is, oof. I hate any movie that has like that excited teenage girl ideology kind of thing. So as far as the acting, I mean, I have to give that about a 4 as well. The plot sucked. I want to say that's about a 2 or 3, and it goes back the same thing as I said, is when you start pushing that this horrific nightmare is in the real world and you can do magic and all kinds of things, then it becomes almost like a Saturday morning cartoon. It's no longer Nightmare on Elm Street. So the plot itself, I would have to give it 2 or 3. I'll give it a solid number. I'll give it a 3 because they tried something new. It didn't work, but there were a lot of people that liked it.
It tried to evolve.
Exactly. So you can't really be upset about that.
For the plot, I gave it a 4 as well. I just thought, it's a step down from the previous 3 films and stuff. I just find it hard to believe that Alice is this master of dreams who helps keep the bad guys away. Just this little girl who...
It's... So there is a TV series that I love, and it's funny because it makes me think of Alice for this one particular episode. So Futurama. Absolutely love Futurama. One of the final episodes was the professor drag racing the spaceship, and one of the I don't know if you want to call her a gang girl or whatever, she kept saying about needing her father's approval and like making it this really depressing thing. And that's almost what I felt like with Alice is, there was that level of tension, that level of disbelief in their relationship, and now she's going against a 5'11" fucking psychopath that is living in nightmares. Like how does that work?
Exactly. It's It's just such a far reach.
And like you even said beforehand, like if Kristen's powers were phenomenal. I thought they were cool. I thought that was truly a stretch in 3 when they presented those powers, how she could pull like Nancy in and things like that. But they were cool because it was in the nightmare. That was where that power lived. And then they expanded on it and so forth and so on. But for Alice to take over that power does nothing.
No.
You're not going to do it, especially if all your fucking friends are dead. Who are you pulling in? Really? like let's be honest, right? So, and Kincaid, that would have been the power to have. Really anything but that one, like, because it just doesn't make sense. Like, and I love the idea for Dan, but I would leave Alice.
Yeah.
Because right, like if I want to die, it's going to be on my terms. It's not going to be on like I can't see this dude. Like, oh my god.
Some girl who's like getting all her friends killed around her wants to shag. Nah, fuck off.
Yeah, right. Like, holy hell, I'd much rather pay for a fucking prostitute than to die. You know, at least then I know what I'm paying for. But yeah, I like I said, I have to give almost an overall score of a 4. That I think that's where it fits. It's not the worst film. Again, 2 has the cake for that one, but it's definitely not anywhere near the best.
Characters, I gave it a 4. This film is basically Nightmare 4, the fucking dream of 4s. The characters, they just weren't there. Some of them stood out, some of them didn't.
But even for the ones that stood out, they were boring and bland.
Underdeveloped.
Yeah, like, absolutely.
They had one character trait each that we took with them throughout the entire course of the film. And I do enjoy how like the character traits, the parts of their deaths and stuff, I thought that was it was a nice touch. Like,
it
how
was. But really, what can you do when you don't set the character up for much? You know, if there's no development, we don't give a shit to begin with. The one thing that we know, it makes sense to include. And I mean, at that point, I don't know if it's because they waited so long to really get the movie going, or if it was if they waited so long to get the movie going, or if it was just they didn't know what to do with these people. They needed that supporting actor, and here we go. But yeah, the character development was horrible. That just for the character development, I have to give a 1. Truly, because it is so rushed and it's so it almost feels like a waste of time.
Like, if you compare it to the character development in parts 1, 2, and 3, they had the exact same amount of time, and yet they all had characters who were presented to us in such a bold way that in a short span, we knew them. Like, even Rod from part 1, as we both said before, he was an arsehole.
Oh, yeah.
But he had more depth to him than any character in part 4.
I know, to be able to say that I felt for him when he actually died is phenomenal, but like the characters in part 4 could have been likable. That was the best part, and I didn't give a shit because you know, in an hour and a half, 2-hour movie, whatever it is, if every other studio has the ability that we have enough character development to feel for these people. For an already running and sustaining franchise, like that's the fact that they went on past Nightmare 4 is phenomenal to me, truly. Because I if I was the production company that was releasing,
right there.
yeah, absolutely, I wouldn't waste any more money on that, regardless what the box office was. But water beds were a big thing. Things like that, like maybe maybe at that point they're like, yeah, all right, this fits the time. Sure, we'll go with it. It doesn't really cross a line. And in reality, it's people like you and me that are sitting there like, okay, you fuckers, like stop it. Like,
how's this for a wet dream?
right, like knock it off, knock your shit off. But no, yeah. So, I absolutely I have to stay adamant for that 4 out of 10, and that I still believe is being generous. But
Oh yeah.
the game recognizes game, like I said.
And then cinematography, I thought there was some, decent shots.
I like the
whole,
waterbed.
Yeah, the whole thing with Debbie in the Roach Motel,
Oh yeah.
that was beautiful. Like, it was different, it was macabre, it was gross and silly, but it worked. Like, the practical effects used there were just, fantastic for what the film was. And then
Oh yeah.
we had to
Oh,
go and fuck
absolutely.
it up with, meatballs exploded from Freddy's chest.
And yeah, I thought that even the transitions, I thought they were phenomenal. The scene transitions, they did a good job from the cinematography aspect of it. So no, I'm gonna give that one about a 7.5.
Yeah, I gave it a 5. I thought we could have done more with it, but what we got was, it was good for the film we were watching and stuff. Like, any shot of the Elm Street house is, going to be incredible. So it was. I think those are the shots, and that was only mainly in the beginning of the film, were done perfectly.
Oh yeah,
And then-
absolutely.
A bit hokey pokey. And then gore. There's not much really blood and guts in this one. We've just got the practical effects with Debbie and the
But
cockroach goo.
right, so I guess if we move into grotesqueness, sure, absolutely. But really, if you think about it, with the exception of Freddy versus Jason, none of the nightmares are really gory.
No.
It has that that presumption of gore, which is great, and that was something Wes Craven did really well in all of his films, was that presumption of gore and violence and hatred. So yeah, I don't have anything for that.
I think I gave it a 4 because I think the bloodiest we've ever seen anything is obviously in part 1 with Glenn and Tina, but you can't really compare them when you've got an A film compared to an E film.
That's absolutely fair.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah, no,
And
I agree, absolutely.
Yeah, and the deaths. Again, I'm going to refer to Debbie and Sheila again here. They're the only 2 memorable ones. Because you got Kincaid, that was a piss take, literally. And then you got Joey's, that was fun, but
it was weird.
very weird. And then you got Kristen's, which was a massive insult. It's hard to. I know this franchise isn't known for its over-the-top death scenes or anything,
But there's still limitations to it, regardless.
yeah, you need something to help the audience know. Oh yeah, do you remember that death scene? Yeah, that's from that movie. Yeah, that's from that one. Oh, part 4. Yeah. It's just different.
No, absolutely. Give me 1 second here. I just have to step away from my desk.
Not a problem. hope if anyone's watching, you enjoy this little discussion.
All right, so it appears that I had missed HorrorRant. I'm going to converse with him, see if he is still interested in continuing this going. I'll probably have to watch the end, close to where he cut out at, to see anything that he said. But I will post on social media, all that fun stuff, to let everybody know what's going on. Otherwise, I would like to thank everybody for viewing, coming in, circulating.